In the news this week, apparently we have a couple new injuries to talk about. What's the first one we need to cover?
Well, so the big one, I guess we'll hold off on most of them, probably because they occurred during the games. But I think the big one to mention is Kai Havertz picked up a thing. I guess maybe it was in training. I don't know. Maybe it was in the late stages of the game from the previous weekend, the Sunderland game. But he is out. It doesn't sound like it's serious to the point. It sounded like, I should say, I think they expected him probably back for March. I don't know if I don't think he was going to be available for. They said for the North London derby, which is disappointing. Obviously, I know Havertz has done a lot to come back. He's dealt a lot with injuries this year. Obviously, I think his presence helps us a great deal.
Definitely.
So I don't like it that he's out. There are a few others. Unfortunately, this week we gotta reset the injury counter. You know, X number of days since an injury. Well, back to zero again. Because we lost a guy on Wednesday, Thursday. That's when the game was. Lost a guy on Thursday, and then at least for a little bit, and then we had a couple of injuries picked up today. Plus, Saka was sort of on his way back, so he played a little bit in this game, but only 45 minutes. So we're just a week away. We're really just a week away from a week off.
Slight break from the madness. Yeah,
I think if we could just get there, I feel good. But it's going to be an interesting couple of days until then. But I think that'll be good for a lot of people. But the injury thing's kind of coming back. Yeah.
Elsewhere in the league, we've had some managerial shuffling. What happened at Spurs?
In Spurs, the untenable became no longer tenable. Thomas Frank is out at Spurs. This was after. Now, we recorded last week. Obviously, we were early on Saturday, so this apparently happened, I think, on Sunday morning. After on Saturday they had lost to Newcastle, or maybe that was on Sunday. It was Monday morning. I don't remember. It's not important. But Thomas Frank is out. That's okay. He's still an Arsenal Silver member, so it'll be fine. Or did we not talk about that meme on the show?
No, I don't know what you mean by that.
So there was a game. It wasn't that long ago. Maybe a month. Maybe it was late January. Spurs played someone an away game against a team that we had just played away. I don't remember who it was. And there's a picture of Frank sort of wandering around their training at the site, holding a cup, which people zoomed in on, and it had an Arsenal logo on it.
That didn't win him any friends there.
No, I think what they said was he had just I just picked up a cup. I guess Arsenal had left it. I mean, I get the impression it was just a plastic. It's just a plastic cup, and they just. Of all the stuff the teams bring, they left it, and I just wanted some water, and I just took it, and I took a cup. There wasn't anything in it. But yes, there have been Thomas Frank's a silver member at Arsenal. He's truly our man on the inside. But he's out. He's out at Spurs. And apparently they just appointed. I don't know if they've announced it officially, or if it's about to be official, but Igor Tudor, former Croatian international, is going to be their manager, presumably till the end of the season. I don't really know about him as far as a full-time manager. Played most of his career in Italy. Actually played 110 games for Juventus across about a decade. Bounced around a lot of clubs, spent some time in Italy, including in Italy, Juventus, Hellas Verona. Never really spent long at anywhere. Just looking through his Wikipedia page. Was most recently at Juventus. He's now at Spurs. On so is he any good? I don't know. Kind of says a lot about where Spurs are at the moment, but also just where we are in the season. Who would want a job like this? They are in a relegation fight.
Right.
All jokes aside, they really are. They're kind of in that mix of teams down to the bottom because they don't have what we don't have outside of Wolves this year. Like last year, the three teams in the bottom were abjectly terrible, and it saved a couple of teams who were kind of hovering around that line: Wolves, West Ham, Spurs and United, maybe.
Right.
And they yeah, boy, they're just kind of a mess. Some of that's injuries.
Sunderland is probably throwing a monkey wrench into it. Like there's almost zero chance of them getting relegated at this point.
It's not actually Sunderland. I think it's Leeds that's doing it. Because Sunderland, Sunderland too. Obviously, the fact that let me start that conversation over. I guess what I'd say is, last year it was the three promoted teams that just never really found their footing in the league.
Right.
This season, like sometimes you'll see that, and sometimes it's promoted teams, sometimes it's other teams. But last year there were three teams, forget where they came from. There were three teams that were they were the bottom. They were at the foot of the table from the beginning of the year to the end. This year, outside of Wolves, like there really hasn't been, there hasn't been anyone else who's kind of separated themselves, so to speak, only the other way we usually talk about that. There's nobody who else kind of sunk down with them. And so as a result, a couple of teams like a West Ham, who've kind of gotten away with being bad, weren't really punished for it because there were always some teams that were just abjectly terrible below them. Those teams don't exist currently. And so there's this clumping of teams. I mean, Leeds is kind of right in that conversation, but by not being a clear-cut 19th or 20th, Leeds is now in a mixture of that. Burnley is in there as well. I think Burnley is kind of started to float more towards that bottom position. And then, of course, like you said, Sunderland, they're being near the top. Well, that takes a team out of that conversation. But it does open up a spot for a West Ham or a Spurs or I think a Leeds. Well, not so much Leeds in that context, but whoever else is floating around that part of the table. But well, I guess actually we should mention another team that's probably almost certainly floating around that part of the table is Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, they also had a manager shakeup this week.
Yeah, Sean Dyche is out at Forest. Okay, since we stopped playing them, I haven't really paid attention to what they've been doing. I know they're in that mix of teams in that relegation fight. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, they're definitely a club that clearly doesn't have a clue what they're doing. To go from Nuno Espirito Santo, who is, a very good manager, but also one who relies heavily on very structured, very defensive play, to Ange Postecoglou, who I'm not even sure could spell defense, much less knows how to play any. When he was at Spurs, right? That's just who we are, mate. That's just kind of, these teams go forward and attack. And then switching for him to Sean Dyche, who's, let's get down in the mud, guys. Like let's get rough and tumble here. Who are they? Like there are some decent. We've seen them. There are some decent players on that Forest roster, but like, who are they? Like, what are they trying to do? What are they doing? Spurs are kind of having that same kind of conversation amongst themselves, I think. And this is it's just so weird to watch. Forest is about to have their fourth manager of the season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Especially
in the Premier League, I'd imagine things are more stable than you might see at lower levels. But is that the case or no?
It depends on the club. Chelsea is kind of the counterexample to that. Manchester United's kind of cycled through a bunch of managers, although Michael Carrick finally didn't win. Oh my God. There was this poor story early in the year. I don't think we had talked about it. Some kid in Spain, a United fan, basically like made a promise that he wouldn't cut his hair until United won 5 games in a row. Well, they were at 4 wins before they drew their game in midweek.
Yeah.
So when this actually ends, he said he's probably just going to look like Chewbacca by the time this is over because he had a pretty good fro going. Oh my goodness. I don't know. A lot of it has to do, and you're seeing this, I think, is true both with Spurs and Forest in their own ways. A lot of this has to do with the damage of dropping down a level is so profound. And there was a little bit, the Athletic had it somewhere this week looking at, there are like 6 teams that are kind of in that zone. A couple of them like Burnley or Leeds, since they were just in the championship, like it's not a catastrophic problem for them. But like West Ham would have to like cut their budget in half. Spurs, for Spurs, it would be a doubly embarrassing thing, not just going down, but not just the financial penalty, but just like the sheer embarrassment of it for a club that has the pretensions they do of being a top team. I don't think they ultimately will. I think they'll squeeze out a few results. They'll get their way back in. Unfortunately for us, Igor Tudor's first game will be the North London Derby next weekend. So because they don't. Yeah, they're already out of the cup, so they didn't play. They didn't play this weekend, and they don't. We're the only team with a midweek game, so I'm not loving that, to be honest. But
yeah, that new manager bounce can be a real thing. Yeah,
but that's life. That's life. That's life in the league. So and then who knows with Forest, but we're not going to play them, so I don't care.
Do you think that might have factored into the timing of them sacking Frank?
I think that the time off probably. Yeah. I think to a certain extent he was kind of a dead man walking.
Yeah.
Like that conversation's been floating out there for weeks at this point. Their position in the Premier League is becoming dire. You know, when your own fans are singing "You're going to get sacked in the morning" at their own game at home games, that's not.
Yeah,
it's not a good position to be in. And
I guess I'm thinking of the player at I don't remember where he was now. He's at City now, where they held on to him until after they played Arsenal, and then they let the transfer go through.
Yeah, I mean, but that's more of a player leaving on a positive way. I think in this case, I don't think they're looking at it in the standpoint of let's get a new manager bounce when we play Arsenal. Although Spurs are insecure enough that they might think that. I think it's more of a case of it finally became too much, and we also have 10 days until our next. We basically have a week and a half off until our next game. That's actually that gives the new guy a chance to come in, actually have a couple practice sessions, institute some principles.
That makes sense.
As opposed to we've seen some instances when Postecoglou showed up with Forest, they fired the manager on Sunday. He showed up on Wednesday, and they played on Saturday. It was just what do you do with that if you're the manager? So I think there's, I do think that sense of timing played into it. The fact that it's a North London derby on the other end, I mean, no, I don't think so.
Okay. There was a story floating around from The Athletic about some thoughts regarding the FA Cup draw. Is that something that you subscribe to?
So we should sort of lead with the with what it is. So the headline of the article says it all. Do some clubs get easier FA Cup draws than their rivals? Now, some of this is general conspiratorial fan talk, which always has a level of unreality attached to it. They're pointing out that last year in the third round of the FA Cup, Manchester City beat Salford City 8-0. Mm-hmm. And then this weekend, on Saturday, Manchester City played Salford City in the FA Cup again. Only won 2-0 this year, so Salford's getting better. But basically the idea is that pseudo conspiracy theory about who gets good draws, and as he basically said, let's run the numbers. And the whole article is basically no, they don't. It's just, especially if you have a really short time horizon with a small sample size. Sure, some things will stand out, but over the long haul of you get to 10, 15, 20 years. Now it all kind of balances out. I mean, what they do point out, and again, this is kind of one of those things where you say, well, duh. Teams that tend to get easier opponents in the early rounds are the ones that tend to go deeper, right? If you're talking about comparing clubs just they're based on their position in the table. So for example, our rating if you were to take all four levels of the football league and basically use the standings table all the way down, so it's all the Premier League teams are down to 20, and then number 21 is the top team in the championship and all the way down. Obviously, Wigan today is going to be, well, they're 21st in League One, so you do the math on that. But The point is there's a massive gap there. And since the bigger the gap, the more likely you are, especially if you're one of the big teams, to be successful, which, duh. And there are limitations to this, too. He pulled out, the finalists with the the easiest and the hardest routes to the final over the last, I think they were looking at 15 years. Apparently, the easiest one was Arsenal in 2017, when a year they ultimately won the cup. And you look through and go, okay, yeah, Preston North End, Sutton United, Lincoln City in the quarterfinals. So yeah, that's pretty easy. And then they got to the semifinals and they beat Manchester City and beat Chelsea in the final. Like, so it goes, well, I mean, it kind of balances out a little bit. So again, if you're a team that makes the final, you're obviously at least a halfway decent team, and you've probably played at least one or two good teams along the way. Yes, it would be ideal if we didn't draw Liverpool in the third round of the FA Cup like we did a couple of years ago. But yeah, I mean, it is a random draw. That's what we really see.
I think the only thing you could potentially do if your goal was to balance it out would kind of be to have a parallel bracket where it's like the Premier League and maybe Championship, but like the top clubs play off for their spot and then the bottom clubs play off for their spot in the final or something like that. But that's kind of contrary to the whole egalitarian idea of the FA Cup.
Yeah. I think also too, there are some countries, I think France does this, where if two clubs draw from different leagues draw each other, the club from the lower division always hosts.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
I think it was France that did that, or at least if it was a team outside Ligue 1, like Ligue 1, But I think if you were League 2 and 3, it's not a big deal. But if you were a League 2 and you drew a Ligue 1 team, you would host. I think it was France, but I kind of get that. But they'll also England will also tell you. Just quickly add this. In England, they'll also tell you the small clubs actually don't mind being drawn away. One, because it's kind of a cool experience to be able to say, oh, I played in Old Trafford. I played at the Emirates. I played in this, in Stamford Bridge. Plus, all the gate receipts of the FA Cup are split 50-50.
Yep.
I mean, you think about, you go to the Emirates, which seats 60,000. That's a lot of tickets. That's a lot of money.
So if their main goal is advantage and potential to win, maybe they want to be at home, but overall they probably don't mind.
I mean, you would see that in the old days of the FA Cup replays, where especially if a smaller team was drawn home, they would go all out to fight for a draw at home, while usually being outmatched for the most part. But you go out for the draw at home, then you get the second leg away. Yeah, you're probably going to get smashed, but you get the experience, you get the money. And you get to say you had the famous result where you held Arsenal or you held Aston Villa. You got the big result to hold them to a draw at your home stadium in front of your fans. So that was kind of the ideal when that team popped up, when those were the numbers that pulled out of the can for you.